Welcome back to This is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me, I still have Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, as well as Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, a certified financial analyst and Group Executive Director at D. Taurus Holdings Limited. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on This is Live. We have had two guests. G.T. Ogunye, commenting on the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal ruling on Wednesday, and also 100 days of President Tinubu in office. You may like to stress that, and also talk about the 28 new governors who are also marking their 100 days in office. And then, of course, we had the Acting Controller General of Customs talking about his vision, challenges that he has faced, and issues with regard to customs, about revenue generation, about closure of borders, about trade facilitation, and also, about expectations of Nigerians, revenue generation in particular, and then the thing that concerns the ordinary people, how they can get tokumbo cars, used cars, easily into the environment. Let me start with you, Professor Kila, so that we just look at some of the issues that have been raised before we take on other issues today.
In the order in which you discussed them, the result of the court case, and then the 100 days in office of the president and the governors of the state. I've said elsewhere that the process of the result of the electoral tribunal is something that I find fascinating. Some of us advocated that thing should have been done before swearing in. And I do hope Nigerians should think about it seriously, to use our time well. Because in reality, there's no reason why somebody should be in 100 days in office and his case is still pending in the court. They should have done that thing before you swear in the president or a governor, so that once somebody is sworn in, there is no case anymore. I think somehow we need to learn to make that happen. And it's something that will benefit everybody, both the elected and those that are not elected or their supporters, so we can move on with life. The other side is a process as well. I do not think the judiciary, which you're a good friend of, has done them themselves a good service in that whole process. I like the fact that the thing was detailed, people saw it, but 12 hours of our life stuck watching that process that made people sleep. I try to introduce a new word called somniferous, and for Nigerians to learn to how to study sleep. I noticed different sleeping styles. Some lawyers had a way of sleeping, politicians had a way of sleeping. There are those who struggle with the sleep. So there was this carnival of sleeping without beds, people sleeping with each other inside the courtroom. I think somehow we need to find a way to go beyond that. In the new world where we live in, it is enough in less than 1 hour, max 1.5 hours, for their lordships to deliver a summary of their cases, and within the next 2 hours, let it be available for everybody by PDF or something like that.
They're trying to teach their lordships how to do their job.
Well, I'm a jurist. I dare teach their lordships.
Which was something they objected to.
Well, I do not wear a wig. I study law, so I think I have the informed decision to say I suggest to their lordship to do it that way. Their lordship needs to move on. It wasn't that. There was a time when none of their lordships had a woman between them. Now they do, and the women behave brilliantly. So it is good to think ahead. If you're a lawyer and you have to bow to their decision, maybe then they can tear you down. They cannot tell me down. We can discuss ideas, and idea propose this. So that is that. But the other thing, we're talking about the bench. When we go to the bar, I think the Nigerian Bar Association needs to look at their members very well. It is not a good thing for a senior advocate of Nigeria to go to the appeal court with a case that will be stepped down for something as basic as local standards. Any student of law will know that those are very basic errors you should not be committing. So if you're committing this kind of errors, and a lot of things, a lot of technicalities that, whether the judges are doing it one way or the other, I think the lawyers who actually prepare their cases in a way that they will not be thrown out based on technicalities. One of the ways to do it is do the case well. The other way is not to take up the case at all. It appears so flawed in your eyes. And I think the bar needs to talk about that to the people.
So that law is not morality. If you have a client who is willing to pay And it's desperate to go to.
And therein has the problem, but then it's a profession. If you have a client who insists on taking out their tooth, dentists will not do that easily. That we need some kind of things. Maybe we need some moral code, if not moral, at least ethical code. I advise people to see the difference between morality and ethical issues on that. Then we go to the 100 days. The 100 days of the president in particular, the governors will need more detail about that. The 100 days of the governor, I think it's a mixed bag that is moving more towards a fail than a pass as a teacher. And I explained this because people will get excited now. The idea is this. It is clear that this presidency has two things going for them. 2.5 things. One is that they seem to be high on intention. You can see, even if you don't like them, you can see that they have good intentions. The other thing they have going for them so far is, especially when we compare them to the one we had before, is they seem to be more communicative. They seem to be more receptive, and they come about. So that's the second thing. What they have as half, why give them 2.5 from there? Or the other thing is that there is this kind of audacious, now we had body language before, now we have the spirit of courage, which worries me sometimes when it descends on people because it has not descended so far very well in some instances. So the spirit of courage to be bold. The boldness I admire, at least which I found impressive, is not even the one of saying fuel subsidy is gone. It's the one of unifying the Forex window. Because that is something that will rock both. And for somebody to go there and do it, it shows that there's a good intention. But then we have a problem, which is the process of doing it. The problem gets worse when we compare process with expectation. Whether you like or loathe this president, a lot of people will have agreed that he will come in as a city boy, as he called himself. A dynamic, metropolitan, Lagos-influenced, Lagos-built person that will go to the boring capital of Abuja where people go to lose their senses, taken by a spirit that a writer called Ruben Abati talked about, some time ago, in which they don't seem to know what they're doing again. But here we are, the presidency, as a matter of fact, not just the president, I think they've missed some points to score some very high points, some, what we call low-hanging fruits. They didn't pick them up. One of the things they missed is the way the nomination of the cabinet. A lot of us have advocated for two things. One, let the list be ready as soon as possible. This presidency could have been the president with the shortest amount of time used to name cabinet. They missed the opportunity of going to parliament with a cabinet with portfolio. That is a legacy they missed as well. They've got a larger number of ministers, not less. That is another opportunity, but that is okay. You have to give people posts. Let us hope that with a team of 45 people, every day we wake up, 45 things are being done. So overall, you're having a 5.4/10 mark for the way things are because expectations are high, performance are rather low, process is not great, but intention is good. We can see that, and communication is fine. So that is what I pick on the 100 days of the presidency.
Okay, Dr. Obiaraeri, let me come to you.
Okay.
I know you probably have a lot more to say about the customs regime in Nigeria and revenue generation and trade facilitation. But of course, we are all politicians at the end of the day, so you will talk about politics too.
Okay, let me come in here. I listened attentively to the acting controller of customs. And of course, he was very evasive in giving you what you wanted to get, that is mentioning names. And it worries me that Nigeria, the big brother in Africa, will still be talking about border closure when we have African Continental Free Trade Agreement in place, that Nigeria is actually supposed to be the big brother spearheading. We are the biggest economy in Africa, the biggest by far in West Africa. The blue economy globally is a $3 to $6 trillion economy. It's an economy that is bigger than our crude oil market if we really understand and have good intentions towards, deepening creativity within that sector. Look at Singapore, 721 square miles, smaller than Alimosho. Singapore is actually importing sand because of the kind of environment they are in. Yet, on an annual basis, Singapore makes average of $27 to $30 billion from their blue economy. Blue economy, when they mention it, it simply has to do with activities to do with oceans, with rivers, with aquaculture, and everything that has to do with economy of the maritime. Globally, over 80% of global trade happens through the seas and the waters. Nigeria as an economy, we have over 800 kilometer coastal lines, best coastal line, deep coastal lines, bigger than any other coastal line in Africa. The nearest transshipment port to Africa is in Rotterdam. Nigeria should be the biggest transshipment hub for the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa. Why will an average Nigerian go to Togo, to Benin Republic, to ship his container, when he can actually bring it to Nigeria? Because we do not have efficiency at the port. In fact, customs have no business collecting revenues. I agree with Professor Kila. The new government is good with intentions, and I heard their intentions to merge NIMASA, MPA, FIRS, and customs. In fact, customs should not be collecting revenue. Go and look at Singapore, look at America, look at UK. What customs should at the border? They should be at the border. Customs has no even business in the hinterland. Some of us have been privileged to travel around the world. Nigeria is the only place you see customs mounting post guards every 10 kilometers on the highway. It's not done anywhere globally. Look at the revenue that they mounted. They said last year they made 2.6 trillion. Convert it to dollar. That's about $2.8 billion. It's small. The volume of import in 2020 was $53 billion. I was discussing with Professor Kila before we entered the studio. I said, even if you apply thumb of the rule, 20% alone is about $10 billion. Therefore, for customs to be collecting $2 billion shows you the volume of leakages.
No, it's a trillion.
I'm converted in dollar.
Oh,
I am converted to dollar. I am a dollar man.
Okay, you think in dollars.
He thinks dollars.
Dr. Bati, 2.6 trillion naira converted to dollar term is $2.6 billion. If you apply thumb of the rule, 10-20% on the volume of import, we should be collecting nothing less than $10 billion from the customs and excise department. There are a whole lot of leakages. I was sharing with him the volume of subsidies that we have, waivers, import waivers at the port, because we allow this public sector profligacy to continue. It's why we have those leakages. Why will somebody go to Togo and Benin? You talk about...
Wait, Dr. Obiaraeri, this Controller General, he just got there.
Dr. Bati, Dr. Bati, let me laugh.
He's talking about plans.
Dr. Bati, you were 100 days in government here. Dr. Bati, let me tell you. We talked about also the cabinet that he put in place. Dr. Bati, Nigeria, I listened to the president. I think he was addressing some Nigerians. He mentioned very important things. He said, Nigeria is not short of natural resources. Nigeria is not short of the human capital. We have the best of brains in the whole world. What we lack is leadership and management. Dr. Bati, governance is science. Governance is a process. For you to even take appointment as Controller General of Customs, as a minister, you must have done studies in that sector. From day one, you will have had what you will do, how you will do it, when you will do it, result that will come with it, and you map it out. In the banking sector, you have it weekly, monthly, plans. And in fact, as you're resuming, you're saying to the whole world, this is what I intend to do X, Y, Z, this month, this quarter, so that people can have a template to judge you. But we don't have it here. People just come and mount intentions, Like I said, customs has no business mounting border posts across the hinterland. They should be at the border post. Customs has no business collecting revenues. Customs, we have been having leakages from that sector alone. From the maritime sector, from that sector, Nigeria can get nothing less than $25 billion annually. Do you know why people go to Benin and Togo? Their ports are more efficient. Dr. Bat, in Nigeria today, based on the records, statistical records, 95% of the average in Nigeria cannot legitimately import even the Tokumbo car you're talking about. And somebody is importing a car that he will have saved over 10 years to buy, with people contributing money from his village. And you're still charging him 70%, 30%. Well, car is not even a luxury, for crying out loud. Tokumbo car is a necessity. If we have efficiency at our ports, we'll put in place the right policies. Reduce the tariff. What drives activities, efficiency, and volume? The whole of Sub-Saharan Africa will be coming to Nigeria as a transshipment hub. Togo, Benin, all the West Africa will actually depend. I was discussing with him, even oil and gas sector. Why were we having smuggling? I told him I took a trip to Liberia. I wanted to go and look at their oil and gas sector. And the biggest depot in Liberia and Togo is not even as big as the smallest depot in Nigeria. That is how massive this economy is. All we want, like I said, is for us to have the right people, the right creativity, the right patriotism, the right mindset, manning the 541 MDAs. In fact, that number is even overbloated. We should not have more than 120 MDAs in the right sense. Or that SIA report should be implemented if we are very sincere. Like he pointed out, they are very good in intentions. They are very good in taking audacious steps, but the processes are not there. And the actions do not match the word. If they are truly, maybe I want to believe that they are playing politics now because of the tribunal cases. I want to believe that after the cases will have been dispensed with, they will go back to do right things. Look at the aviation. Are you aware that the global financial partner, the guy that owns the Gatwick airport, Ogunlesi, is a Nigerian? For you to appoint somebody to be the aviation minister, that person would have been involved in aviation activities, either as a financier or an operator or as a stakeholder who understands everything. In fact,
or as a traveler.
And let me tell you, someone like Bayo Ogunlesi, if we are very honest and sincere in this country, should be an honorary minister on aviation. Tap his brain and his place. Bring him. Nobody should be aviation minister without going through his interview. This country is blessed with the best mind we can see anywhere in the whole world. But we need to put in place the round pegs in the round holes to be able to, like I said to you the last time I was in your studio here, Nigeria is an economy that can generate, export and receive revenues of over nothing less than $300 billion annually. But we need to do the right things. I am believing God that after the politics of the tribunal, of the elections, they will go back. 41% of the names out of that 41 should not be there in the ministerial list if we are sincere in this country.
Let's give them a chance, Doctor. So far, I think, fun of you mentioned aviation. I'm in aviation. And I think so far, so good actually with the Aviation Ministry. I mean, he has set out some templates that he shows that, you know, he knows the right things or he's speaking to the right people. So,
no, Professor Kila, there's a confusion. Now, like I said, the movement from the old terminal to the new terminal is good. But it will have been done in phases. Yes, it should have been. You know, you study before you tackle a problem.
You look the way
there must be diagnostic studies.
Okay, let's take another subject. Now, the G20 Summit, which has also been in the news this week. President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria says that without Nigeria, the G20 bloc of nations will be incomplete. Addressing leaders of the bloc on Saturday in India, Tinubu said that Nigeria will play a vital role among the countries in shaping a more equitable world. The president said the challenges confronting the world cannot be addressed without multilateral cooperation. At that summit too, the African Union formally joined the group of 20 top global economies. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi sees the privilege of inviting the African Union into the group. In his words, and I quote, "I invite the representative of the African Union to take his place as a permanent member of the G20, before banging his gavel 3 times to applause in the room." Well, this looks a bit interesting. The G20 countries, apart from the European Union, you know, they are not there as a bloc, So in Africa, we have 54 countries. Now the AU is being invited, you know, as a member, as a bloc to represent an entity, whatever, to represent Africa. Okay, what do we think of that? And then President Tinubu is saying, oh, Nigeria, you know, the G20 will be incomplete without Nigeria as a member sitting at the table. Do we really have what it takes? I mean, do we have enough capacity in terms of productivity, in terms of our economy, a country that has a foreign reserve, as we have been told, a depleted foreign reserve of just about $3 billion, which cannot even cover imports for so many months. So I'll start with you, Dr. Obiaraeri here. You know, along with the general assessment of the G20, which India, you know, is using to showcase itself. Maybe because Modi is preparing for election next year and he needs to show off and say, oh, India is there. Well, of course.
Dr. Abati, Nigeria deserves to be a member of the G20.
Okay.
Nigeria,
what can we bring to the
Dr.
table?
Abati, in terms of the human capital, in terms of the natural resources, in terms of the latent potentials, Nigeria is also actually supposed to be among the G10. It isn't like G10. we have that potential. But like the president said, we need to manage leadership in this country. We need to do the right. Like I said to you, look at Brazil. Look at most of the countries among the G20 economies. As at between 1960 and 1966, Nigeria was ahead of these economies. As at 1980, China was dead and buried. China was a country that was ravaged by poverty. As at 1980, China had 769 million extreme poor people. China became intentional. As at that 1980, China had literacy level about only 62%. Go and check it, Dr. Bati. Over 25 years, Chinese people paid much emphasis on very intentional education development. Within a space of 25 years, they moved their literacy level from 62 to 97% and took over 700 million people out of poverty. Today, China is even buying up agric fields in America. Americans are panicking. Nigeria has the same potentials. Okoji is a Nigerian. Akinwumi Adesina is a Nigerian. Go to America. The most educated, the most improved ethnic bloc in America is Nigerians. So if Bayo Gunlesi, who owns Gatwick Airport, is a Nigerian. So what are we, if we want to occupy our rightful seat among the G20 nations, we need to put one thing in place: leadership and management of our economy. Once we do this, they will invite us to occupy our seat. We won't beg for it.
Professor Kila?
Well, two sides to it. I mean, number one, the idea of getting the AU as a single entity in the G20 is, I find it ridiculous, patronizing, and vexatious. And I think we should move away from such, because there are countries who are smaller than which local government in Nigeria inside there that are there individually. You pack the whole of Africa. So that is not a good thing. I understand the president's vision that we want to be part of it. I guess Dr. Obiaraeri wants to be part of it. But my view in life is a bit different. You know, my view is that if people are eating their food and they see me and frown, I tend to bore them to death with saying I don't want the food. You know, I just stay away from it. If they don't want us, let's stay away. The people you've mentioned, they didn't go there based on potential, doctor. They went there because they were already strong. My thinking is that we should look away, roll up our sleeves, and show them why they need us. You know, not say, please call us in. We just have to roll up our sleeves and make ourselves essential, at least needed, if not essential to their whole block as well. The fact that they can do without us is not because they hate us. It simply means they don't think we're valuable enough. And, you know, this is on a personal level for our viewers. This is what I say to people. If you have an important friend, either powerful, rich, or famous, and you call him and he doesn't pick your call, it just shows you're not important enough for that person. Nobody's too busy to pick anybody's call. So I think what we need to do is to be more important, to be crucial to them, so that when they gather, they say, where's Nigeria? And that we just need to look inwards.
Beyond the membership, Dr. Obiaraeri, very briefly, so that we can take another subject. President Tinubu used the opportunity of the early appearance at the G20, even when the host was away at the ASEAN Summit, to hold investment meetings, and he got a pledge of about $14 billion in terms of investment from various groups, you know, in India. Is that something we should begin to jubilate about? That 14 billion is coming. When you add that to the promise from Exim Bank, right? You know, of another 3 billion, you know, 17 billion coming to Nigeria. You know, and the Tinubu administration has said, oh, President Tinubu has secured investment. Investment is coming.
Dr. Abati, Nigeria as a country ticks the right boxes for any discerning global investor to come here. This is where the opportunities are. Dr. Abati, for Nigeria to get to the level of the first world economy, we need to have investment inflow of not less than $100 billion consistently over the next 30 years. And we have the environment, we have the demography, we have the natural resources, we have the human capital to drive it. 13 billion, 14 billion, very good. But I can tell you, we have potentials to do far better than that. It's a good step. I don't take it away. It's a very good development. But I can tell you, once we are able to tackle two monsters in the house, corruption, insecurity, Dr. Abati, investors will beg to come here. This is where the dance is happening. They will just need to fix two things. But corruption and insecurity. And it's something we can easily fix. I have given you examples. Let me tell you, Americans are corrupt. Politicians are corrupt, but what prevents them is deterrence. Think about it. If public office holders are meant to publicly declare their assets openly, and it's in an e-portal, and they do it every year, renew it every year, and Nigerians are given the power, amend the CCB Act, where they have the whistle blowing power. If you blow any whistle and something is recovered, you will collect 20%. Let me tell you, the police, EFCC agent, the bankers, even everybody will become an EFCC unofficial agent. And when you know that it is no longer going to be uhuru for you, you become a local government chairman, you go and steal local government allocation to buy houses. You are buying the houses to go to jail for people to blow the whistle and collect it. Deterrence is key. Fixing security, which is the son of corruption. Nigeria flies.
Professor Kila, you were going to say something.
Yeah, but I think one should take time to applaud the actions of the president. Yeah. Because, these potentials were there, other people have not done it. Yeah. So anytime somebody does something, which you underline, is a good thing. If he keeps having this trip, and if he does, 10 of them, on average of 10 billion per trip, maybe he can bring in 100 billion in a year. We'll give him that kind of target. He just goes for a few days, and by the end of it, come up with 100 billion. That's a good idea. There are two steps to it. One is the external one, where you market, you promote yourself for people to come and invest. The other side is the internal one, where you do the right thing, like what he says. He talked about security and corruption, but more importantly, I think the intangible one is something like the certainty of law. So that people know that when you enter an agreement, it will happen, and somebody will not come and change the law overnight. But I think it's a good step, and we need to do more. And when we deal with others, we're forced to, it's like partnership for business. When you deal with other people, you're forced to be transparent, and you're forced to be detailed in everything you do. So to that extent, well done. That's a good thing.
Major problem in Nigeria. Pacta sunt servanda.
Servanda. Yes.
Agreements are sacred. They are sacrosanct. Then Nigeria does not respect agreements. Yes. Good point there. Yeah. Let's take one more subject. The Nigerian Labour Congress has directed civil servants to go back to work after the completion of a 2-day warning strike. The union, in a statement last Wednesday, asked its members across the country to resume work on Thursday. The Nigerian Labour Congress had called on its members to embark on a 2-day warning strike over the impact of petrol subsidy removal on the masses. Workers in some states fully complied with the strike order as activities in government institutions were grounded, while partial compliance was witnessed in some states. Well, the truth of the matter was that the federal government managed to get the Trade Union Congress on its side. Yeah. And then the Nigerian Labour Congress insisted with its affiliates that they would go on strike. At the end of the day, it was a partial strike. Yeah. But what is all this testing, as I described it, a strike by organized labor, compelling certain Nigerians to say, look, is labor really serious about its demands on government? Professor Kila, let me start with you.
Well, I have a lot of sympathy for Labour in this case because they're dealing with something bigger than them, for two reasons. Number one is that, actually 3 reasons. Number one is that the situation is very complex. There is no clear solution to it. Let us assume, for example, that one does not want to remove fuel subsidy. The problem is that there's no money to pay for it. Even if the government had intention of saying, we're going to keep it, there's no money to pay. That's the problem. And then so it's not easy to find a solution. The other problem Labour is having is that there is a general narrative in the country where people have sort of make believe that there's no alternative to removing fuel subsidy. You even hear people who are against it saying that, there's always been a good thing. Just for full disclosure, I am not one of those people who are for it and against it. I remain where I am, and I believe that fuel subsidy is something expensive that should be made redundant, and the money that is being saved from it should be used to build refineries. That has always been my position on that. But, a lot of people actually genuinely believe that we have no choice but to remove fuel subsidy. So it is difficult for Labour to galvanize people around that kind of issue. They just feel they're suffering, but they don't have a clear solution. The third thing is that, given where the country is today and the economy of the country, there are too many people who are living hand to mouth, both legally and illegally. So if you ask those people to stay at home, it becomes very tough of them. There are people whose salary is almost zero in their pocket. What they count on is either the tips, those are the legal ones, that they can get when they go to work, the thank you here and there, or the ones who go there blatantly to extort people so that they need, whichever way, they need to be working, otherwise they won't eat the next day, if not the same day. So in that situation, it becomes difficult to call a strike. Couple it with the fact, or add to it the fact that the people who are the ones organizing strikes and protests before, are the ones in power now. So it is difficult to protest against people who are the masters of protest. So it's a very tough situation to be in. The testing strike that some people have been mocking is not as bad as it seems. It's not that they're testing microphone, Dr. Badi. That's very wicked of you. It's not about testing microphone. The idea is that you show the government what might happen if you take that step and you brace for it. It's a tough place to be.
Dr. Bati, I have no sympathy for the NLC. In fact, NLC, they are part of the problem. Dr. Bati, I will take you back. I was an active participant from the buy side under Obasanjo privatization program. I was head of project finance in a bank. Yeah. And I know how much the members of the NLC protested against those exercises. Yeah. For instance, the petrochemical plant LMA that was sold, I knew how much that NLC protested against that LMA plant being sold. Today, if Obasanjo had not sold that LMA plant, today it would have been part of like refineries. Yeah. Today, that LMA plant they've done the Stream 2, and they are doing Stream 3, and it's contributing so much to the Nigerian economy. In 2007, Olusegun Obasanjo privatized those refineries. Remember the Blue Star Consortium, Aliko Dangote, Femi Otedola, and the rest of them. NLC and the Niger Delta militants were among those that pressured late Yar'Adua, the good man, to reverse those sales. Who are those manning the refineries? Over the last 23 years, these are members of the NLC and TUC.
Wow.
If you are a member of the NLC, I usually ask them that question. If the president of NLC was the owner of the refineries, and every year you pay salary of 67 billion to people, and they are not refining anything, what will you do? You will fire them. So protesting the removal of subsidy, they are part of it. You know, the average Nigerian, those who should be protesting are the 1.3 multi-dimensional poor Nigerians. Members of the NLC and TUC are part and parcel of the problems of Nigeria. Between 2015 to 2023, Nigeria squandered over 16 trillion naira. Subsidy, failed turnaround maintenance program, losses at the refinery, 120 billion every year. Yet it was not fixed. Members of NLC never went on strike to protest why the refineries are not working. Yeah. Think about it. NLC members, ASU members are all part of the problems of Nigeria.
Leave out ASU. Don't touch ASU.
Let's just take one more topic. And this is from South Africa. Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the Zulu nationalist and historic leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party, who presided over South Africa's deadliest violence ahead of the first all-race elections, has died. President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, said the Zulu leader died on Saturday at the age of 95. Buthelezi last week was discharged from the hospital after a prolonged stay. Funeral arrangements have not yet been confirmed. Well, Professor Kila, let me come to you. You are a professor of international relations. Yeah. Prime Minister of the traditional royal family, you know, one of the more prominent figures in the struggle against apartheid, although a bit controversial in terms of his position, complicated position, some people would say, on some of the issues in the race towards freedom. But made his mark, you know, oldest member of the South African Parliament, now, you know, died at the age of 95. Quickly, briefly.
Well, the last of the Zulu king. I mean, he represents more the traditional part of the Zulu tradition than the modern one. And his presence in modern democracy, I've had goes to write elsewhere, is actually, you know, an abomination. Is a rarity that shouldn't have occurred. We shouldn't mix those things together. It is good for him to remain this warrior. It's tough if you put a warrior on democracy because he's always bloodthirsty. I think that is what happened to him. He mistook. He didn't understand the idea that the great Aten, who said that the battle in democracy is the word. That is what you use. Democracy is about sword. It's about words, not sword. And I think he did not get that easily, and he has to do that. There are those who have, sort of made excuses for him, saying that that was a tough time. You know, it was a passing period. And that democracy, they had to fight for it, like every democracy. But I think if anybody has lost a life or blood, they realize that no power is worth such things. So, but you know, he's gone now. But the last of the great Zulu is one of the accolades that they used for him, because he reminds one of the great Zulu battle against the British generations before his own. I think it's a lesson to the whole of Africa for us to keep our tradition in traditional places.
Well, I guess that's where we draw the curtain today. Thank you very much, Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, and thank you, Professor Anthony Kila. You've been watching This Is Life, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from our entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.